I feel like we've had some pretty good combos so far. But I want to ask, what about churches that serve alcohol at like church functions? Like at small groups maybe, or like, special things outside of the main service? Because I've come across that a couple of times. And I don't know, what do you think?
I think, again, this is my personal view. I know one thing we've all agreed on is the fact about not doing certain things that causes our brother to stumble. And I think what I've just continuously come across in my own personal life and realization is that, there's no for sure way to ever know who you're causing to stumble or ever knowing where anyone is. And, just even outside not knowing who's watching, but even when you do know who's watching, you feel, oh, well, they're good. Mm-hmm. We don't really know. We can't just look into their hearts. Only God knows their hearts. And the church is like the hospital. The same way the sick come to the hospital, the people who need Jesus should be coming to the church. So they may not be in a healthy space with Christ or in a relationship with God, because we hope that just not only save people in the church, we want people who are still in need of salvation to come to the church. So we're having church functions where people who are still in the world or deciding if they want to be in the world or coming out of the world, and we're serving alcohol, and they see people in the kingdom partaking in moderation and this and that. To them, that's going to mean something different because it's about the wisdom, and when you don't have the wisdom about something, it can be tainted and taken, turned into something perverse. And to them, oh, that's my liberty, that's my cue, so I can go back and do my version of moderation, which may not line up with the Word of God. So that's where I think in that space, in general, when it comes to the whole stumbling block, but specifically in the church, since it's specifically a place where people who are, quote unquote, sick are coming to get healed, I think it's a tough territory. It's dangerous territory, personally.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many different walks of faith that are in the church, and so it's just like for someone, I guess maybe not a higher walk of faith, they know, okay, I can just have one drink and be okay, but there could be someone who's still like a baby Christian and they don't, understand like, okay, well, let's see, last night I had some drinks with my friends, and so like this is really different. They could misinterpret us having a drink at church as, oh, okay, for me drinking is partying with my friends and getting drunk, or having a drink is related to these things. And so again, just like for different people, I feel like the church, as we do want a church to be, we want the church to be diverse and have, there's going to be different thoughts and different thoughts of thinking, and we don't only just want people who are at their highest level game of Christianity, you know what I mean? And so like if you do want to be welcoming, you do have to also understand that there are people who are not, filled up with scripture or just even filled with the Spirit to really discern, like, okay, what does it mean when these people who are Christian are having a drink? And I feel like the church, just in general, is called to be an example, like in that, sense of being a light. And so,
yeah, that's a really good point. So I feel like a lot of these churches that I'm seeing are like trying to blend the world and the church together, and you want to bring in people who aren't already in the church, like we mentioned. So I guess the thinking might be alcohol can kind of show like we're laid back and kind of, we're not like these high and mighty people over here with our suit and ties, and like we're not perfect. It's okay to like kind of changing that perception, because right now there is this perception that like Christians are stuck up or like, so I can see where that might be coming from. But yeah, you're right, it is tricky because there's an eclectic, amount of people in the church, and you should be a leader. Yeah.
I think there is you obviously split opinions on that. One way this can be perceived is, you're always going to look to the church to lead you. So them having alcohol can kind of show you that, you can have one glass, but that's it. That's how you do moderation. They're going to show you how to do it. But at the same time, that same act can be perceived by others who are struggling with this as, okay, if I can drink in the church, you know what? It's okay for me to drink in my house. I feel like that's where, some people find themselves, and others also find it as an issue. It obviously depends on the person. Personally, I feel like it's not a good idea to have alcohol in the church, because you might have, like I said before, people struggling that get in there, and people that might have given up on it. But then now that you're offering it back to them, you're basically taking away years and years of hard work to get to where they were, and in the blink of an eye, since it's a church, like you guys said, it's a welcoming place. They feel like, okay, I can have one drink. I haven't drank in 15 years or something, and with that one drink, they slip back into their old habits. You definitely, I feel like that's something that you should not have at church, that you should avoid at all costs. If you're having a specific event with just adults and you want to do that, pastors, adults, and leaders of the church, no kids around, whatever, maybe that might be different because all of them are adults and they know, but still I feel like it shouldn't be done completely, because it's a really controversial thing.
Yeah, I think it's even just outside of being such a controversial thing, like kind of like what you said, like usually a church who is serving alcohol like within the church at like events or something like that, that's usually the thing that they want to say, like, hey, we can relate to you guys and we want to catch the lost, basically. But I think that's such a scary situation, because you might be placing value on an opportunity to bring somebody in and bring them to Christ if maybe they don't know Christ already, and maybe that person is only going to that. And I've heard people say, like, oh yeah, I'll go to that because they serve alcohol. That sounds like a good time. And even in the event that person, maybe they do become saved, had they had a history of alcohol, if they're going to continue going to this church. And I mean, this is, me speaking, like, I've been that person, like, oh yeah, like, if this church is serving alcohol, cool, that sounds fun. I like to drink and all this other stuff. I grew up going to church. How come is it that it wasn't until I went to, another church that I just learned that being drunk is a sin? But I grew up still going to church, but never did I know that it was a sin, because I was used to, people in the church drinking and that being held almost on a pedestal, which makes sense, but I think that the risk is so much greater, because then I also became that person once I learned that being drunk was a sin. People are looking for excuses to do what they want to still do, and I became that person. I needed an excuse to say, hey, I can still drink, even if I wasn't getting drunk. And a lot of times I was able to say, well, all the people, this is a church that drinks, of course it's okay. And not that I was an alcoholic, but, there's people who are going to church lost and who may come from an alcoholic past, and the moment that they're going to, they're trying to get involved in their church and all this other stuff, the moment that a glass of wine or any other kind of drink is placed in front of them and everybody around them saying it's okay, that's, you're not going to hand an alcoholic a glass of any kind of alcohol, because you don't know where that's going to go. And I think that's the risk of what could happen is so much scarier than the opportunity to say, hey, we can relate to you. I think there's a lot of different ways that a church can try to relate, to people who may not be in the church or saved. And not even just that, but I don't think it's necessarily a responsibility to relate. There's a strategy that you can go along to like try to bring people to Christ, and I think that's absolutely okay. But the Bible still commands us to be in, not up. We're supposed to stand out. People are supposed to see our lives and say that person looks different. They're living, a happy life. I want that for myself. They're supposed to see it as something different. And I think that, that's something that a church has a responsibility to not forget, I guess.
I feel like I can piggyback on what you said, and just say first of all, the church, just like your friends, they should, or at least your good friends, they should tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
They should tell you that you should not be an alcoholic. Not it's okay to drink once or twice. If you have a problem, just reduce the amount of drinks you have. Like, they should not tell you what you want to hear, because like you said, you're looking for excuses to do what you want. And I also feel like, just like you said, it's very easy to slip back into old habits. And when you come into church, especially if you're an alcoholic, it's not like you have a label on your forehead saying, hey, I'm an alcoholic, don't give me any drinks or else I might slip back into my old habits. Like, you don't know people's hearts. And those that go to church because they heard, hey, they serve alcohol here, I'll go to church, I'll look holy, but, when they're serving it, I'm going to be drinking one, going back into my car, changing, coming back, getting another and another and another. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, people will find excuses to just drink, but since it's at a church, they'll say, hey, I was at a church, they were offering, it's okay. Whereas if you say, hey, I was drinking at a bar, people start seeing it as, okay, he's a drunk, he's this. But if you say, hey, I was drinking at a church, and the church offered it to me, you know how you can already see how it sounds. It's like, okay, the church is offering it, so it's not as bad. Whereas, if you go to a bar and they're offering you drinks and it's the exact same thing, it's bad. So why is one better than the other? You know what I mean? So obviously the church is attributed with, living a good life, living a healthy life, faithful life to God. So you obviously don't want to mix in something like serving alcohol, basically being like a sidebar, if you will, to Christians. I don't think that's just a good approach, if you ask me.
I think it's like really relative, just the whole topic in general. And I think that, since I would say most of the world can relate or thinks that drinking is more related to bad, then I don't think the church should do it. Like, if it wasn't, like if everyone drank and everyone was like cool with it, then like, yeah, you guys could do it. But since it has like a bad connotation, then I don't think it's a good idea for a church to serve drinks. Like, I'm sure like back in the day, everyone used to smoke cigars, and that was just like a thing. Like, everybody smoked. They didn't know about lung cancer or anything back then. They just did it. And if a church, like, you could smoke at church, probably, I'm not sure, but I'm sure you could, and it wasn't frowned upon. There's nothing bad about it, so you could do it. But now, if you like smoked at church, people would be like, "Wow, you smoking at church? That's bad." So then, now it's not allowed, right? So it just depends on where you personally, I feel like, what's good or bad. And I feel like, since most people think that drinking is bad, the church shouldn't do it because they want to be like hypocritical in anyone's consciousness or anyone's beliefs.
And probably, just probably from like the other side, because I guess like we all kind of have the same opinion, like, yeah, no, the churches. But then I guess like from the other point, like standpoint, if someone wanted to make an argument, is like, okay, so we all are like, okay, yeah, sure, you can have a glass of wine, like, don't get drunk, blah, blah, blah. So that's probably what, these churches are thinking, to show that, hey, we're not, like, judging those who drink. Because most likely, and I think that this, at the same time, can be the fault of Christians, is that some Christians can be, maybe some non-Christians have been hurt by Christians who have been like, oh no, like, you're not good because you're drinking and you're doing this and all those things. And so why would that person want to become a Christian, like, because they're being heavily judged. And so I can definitely see the appeal of a church wanting to be like, well, hey, like, me as a pastor or me as a leader, I think drinking is okay when done in moderation, or if I'm not getting drunk. And so I want to show these people who may have been hurt, they don't have to be an alcoholic, but who may have been hurt by someone who judged them, like along those lines. And so I can totally understand that. But I will say that, again, it's just kind of, there's so many different walks of life that someone could take that and run with it and get confused. But then, Aisha, I liked what you said about it may not be the responsibility necessarily of the church to be your best friend, kind of in a sense, because there are so many things that the Lord says in Scripture that makes me, as a Christian, feel like I feel like I'm being judged, God. You know what I mean? Like that kind of hurts to hear, But like, that's true. But then, but individually, I think we have different responsibilities and different callings, and different things to that. But the church in general, like, they're supposed to be our shepherd. They're supposed to like lead us, or like our passion is supposed to guide us. And so, I feel like there's just different responsibilities there.
Hi guys, it's Naya. Thank you so much for joining us and watching our video around the topic, should Christians drink and party? So there were a couple of things that actually got left out of our video. Unfortunately, they did not record. So I'm just going to summarize them really quick here at the end as we wrap it up. One thing that we were all kind of saying is do not be judgmental. I feel like that's a really important part to reiterate in regards to this whole conversation. In John, we hear about the story of the woman who was caught in adultery, and the people wanted to stone her, and Jesus said, "Let the first one without sin cast the stone." And that just is a really powerful way to think about it. Like, we all have our own struggles that we deal with. It might not be alcohol, it might be something else. Like, we all struggle with sin. So, and no sin is greater than any other sin. So, yeah, I mean, if you see somebody who's, drinking, and it might not be okay for you personally, you may have felt convicted not to drink. But that doesn't mean that that's the case for everybody. So just keep that in mind. And then I feel like the second thing that's really important to reiterate is the question really shouldn't be, can Christians, drink and party, or should Christians drink and party? It really should be, does what I'm doing glorify God? That should be the question for everything. I feel like a lot of times we want like a black and white answer. Is this right or is this wrong? Like, it's not about right and wrong. And when you reframe it to, does it glorify God? You're actually shifting, and you have like a heart change. Your heart is really in a better place to answer that question. So yeah, I think last I just want to say, we want to keep this conversation going. So if you guys have anything else that you wanted to include that maybe we didn't come up with, leave a comment in the comment section below. If there is something that we said that you want to expound on, feel free to keep that going in the conversation below. And if there's another topic that you want us to cover in an upcoming video, let us know. We have a bunch of different resources that we'll be listing in the description, all the different verses that we've covered and some more verses. And also, just one last thing is, for those who might be struggling with addiction or substance abuse, there are some resources that we've listed below for that too. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this, and it was really fun to record, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.